Most of us live a very normal life. We don't have broken legs. We don't go through operations. We have to be inspired by more normal, average things because we are average. But anyways, last night I was thinking about what to say to go beyond limits, what to inspire you with, how to be funny today. And then a friend of mine came from London, from the Guardian newspaper, and we sat down and we talked, and I had 4 whiskeys. So I couldn't think about what I was going to say today. But that was what it meant to be beyond limits, was to listen to his story about how angry he was at a black man being accused of rape in the south of America, that he spent 2 years looking through all the records and writing a book and discovering that that man had nothing to do with the rape, and that there were 2 white men, and that black man might have been killed in a court case. And then I said, okay, I've heard that story, it's great. I spent 4 hours with Nick Davies of The Guardian. I was going to go home and think about how to inspire you today and be funny. And then Jonathan came in, and I sat down with Jonathan, who's a reporter for the New York Times. I went beyond limits and had 4 more whiskeys with Jonathan. So I don't know how to be funny, I don't know how to be passionate today, but and then I was thinking about our first speaker. She is a public speaker, and she knows that in America, you start public speaking with a joke, but in Vietnam, you start public speaking with an apology. So being both a Vietnamese and an American, let me apologize for not having a joke and for not being funny. But I'm angry because we want to go beyond limits, but we can't be inspired by people who've done so amazing things, such amazing things, like what you just went through. Most of us would not have gone through. And it's courageous to go skateboarding once you've lost your legs. But I'd like to talk more about something more average, more common to us all here. One of the common things that I find here is that I have to fill out all sorts of forms in Vietnam whenever I do anything at all. And that thought came to my mind, and during the break I was going to think about how to inspire you and how to be funny, and I ran back to my bar and I had a whiskey, and then I came back here. But those forms always starts with 3 words. Độc lập, tự do và hạnh phúc. Independence, freedom, and happiness. Go beyond limits. Do not listen to words. Go find it in yourself to be happy and to be independent and to be independent. And I will tell you now, nobody is going to give you your happiness. Nobody you your independence, and nobody will give you your freedom. You have to want it, and you have to earn it, and you have to fight for it, and you have to give it to yourself. One of the ways that we can go beyond limits in the society is when we have a chance, is to speak the truth. Speak the truth to yourself. Forget Google. Don't go to Google. Stop Google. Stop Facebook. Go speak to yourself. Spend time with yourself. Listen to yourself. Your grandmother doesn't live on Google. But your grandmother has a story. She has lived a life in Vietnam. She knows what happiness and what independence is and what freedom is. Go talk to your grandmother. Forget Google. Forget Facebook. Okay. Do that for me, at least for one day. And then you know and you will realize what freedom means, what freedom you don't have, and what freedom you can give yourself. Go beyond limits. Go get your own freedom, your own happiness, and your own independence. And your grandmother did that. Your grandfather did that. Go spend time with them. Don't spend time on Google and Facebook. And then have a whiskey. You introduced me as somebody with a career in radio and all that. And I was talking to my journalist friends last night. One of the reasons I think that I have trouble with the police here and my friends here, is that I don't have one career. Every time I come into Vietnam, I ask for a visa either to translate a book, to work on a movie, to work on videos, to do radio, to translate things. And Vietnam doesn't understand somebody who does so many things. You're always working on one thing, you work for one agency, you work for one bank, you work for one university, and you do that all your life. And Vietnamese culture tells you, nhất nghệ tinh, nhất thân vinh, one career and you will have success. I think you should go beyond limits and give yourself the freedom to choose different careers, different things to do in your life. Do not get stuck in all of this. I do not mean any disrespect out of the Confucian nature or the Confucian culture that we are in here, but to go beyond limits, we have to look at the culture, respect it, and also ask questions. And I want you to be angry. If you sit in a nice sofa, you're not going to be angry, you're not going to stand up and go ask for another chair. But if you're sitting on a stool that's broken, you will get angry, you will go change things. And to go beyond limits is to change things. To change yourself, and to change things, and hopefully change others, and change society. So I've done different things in my life, and I call myself a nomad because I've traveled around the world, and I'm just that much more fortunate than you that I've had the chance to do that. And I think in the old days, the nomads go around looking for water, and they go looking for food. Our generation, we went around looking for ourselves. And you have a nation, you have a culture, and you're grounded in it. I was lost. I traveled to the US when I was 17, and I had to defend myself. I had to yank my own freedom and my own independence in America. And then I had to yank it all the same time. I came back to live in Vietnam, or the first times I came to visit Vietnam in 1989. And I had to be angry, and I'm angry now that I was born in this country, and then I had to leave, and I had to leave my families, I had to be separated from my father and my mother. But I also have the Vietnamese sense of accepting it and learning to go beyond limits, the limits of anger, and to live with compassion, and to accept the way things are in life, and yet expand those limits. And to think of how arrogant and preposterous for me it was to want to be on the radio in the United States. I came at 17, and by the time I was 21, I was on the radio, and I had those years to study English, but to go and speak English to an English-speaking audience when your English was not so good was an act of utter arrogance. But I did it because I was angry, because people didn't understand what we Vietnamese, what we immigrants were all about. And I spoke with the Chinese experience, and I learned from the Japanese and the Filipinos. And I felt angry. We needed to tell our stories. And that story, by telling it, I was getting my own independence and my own happiness. For being able to tell that story, because nobody else was going to tell that story for me. That's why I write books. Now, I have another passion. I'm angry when I'm sober, because I see so many things, so I get drunk a lot, and so I have a bar. But I want you to be angry. I really want you to be angry. And I see a lot of Vietnamese who are very polite to their parents, who stick to Confucian notions of family and society, but they also accept authorities, they accept things that are not right. And then they do it, when they accept all this Confucian thing, they limit it inside their family. But on the streets, they don't give a fuck. They throw trash everywhere. I see kids who are completely polite to their parents, throwing trash out the balcony, dropping shit on people's head. Well, be angry about that, and be angry with yourself for doing the same thing. Only by being that passionate, and maybe passionate is a better word than angry, but be passionate about it. Change your hairstyle, move to Manhattan, be a comedian if you want. But have a passion, like she said. Think of the things that make you angry and do not accept things that make you angry. Change it. Go beyond limits. I don't have a speech. I don't have an outline, but I have a certain amount of anger. Now, my father was captured during the war in Vietnam in 1968 and taken to the border of China. And he spent 12 years in prison, 9 of which in isolation, where he was put in a hole in the ground, his knees touching one wall, his back touching the other. And I was separated from him, and I didn't see him until 16 years later. Was he angry? I don't know. He never expressed it. He was stressed out, I'm sure. He wrote poems about prison. He wasn't angry at the people who did this to him. He had a compassion in him to say, those people are making a mistake or have made a mistake. They believed in something wrong and they put me in prison. But he went beyond limits by forgiving them and by continuing on with his life and not living with the anger and the bitterness. Now, I think there's a difference between being angry and being bitter. Go beyond limits. This one time, I will forgive you if you go on Google and find the difference between angry and bitter. Angry allows you to get beyond limits. Bitterness makes you stay in one place and just be angry and bitter. So go beyond the limits. Don't drink the same whiskey twice, 3 times a day. Change it. Drink different kinds of whiskey. Test. Try and find other things to drink. Stop writing love songs. Stop writing pop songs. Stop listening to Korean pop. Go listen to stuff from Sri Lanka. Find out what the people in Sri Lanka did when there was a civil war. Understand what they write about. Go to Indonesia. Stop going to New York and Paris. Okay? That's old. That's dead. Okay? Go to Indonesia. They're still struggling with human rights and freedom and independence. Go to India. Go to Algeria. Go to Syria. If you can, go. But if you don't have a chance to go outside your office, your schools. Go talk to the woman who sells you tea and find out what she's done in her life. Talk to the guy sitting next to you on the bus. There's one common thing that I see here in Vietnam after 8 years here, or many common things. I'll just quickly wrap this up. The Vietnamese have a concept of nhường, nhịn. Nhường is what? To yield, to give to somebody. Nhịn is to accept. You say nhịn đói, I accept hunger. I'm not going to eat. Nhường is to yield. Well, what's changed in Vietnam is the part where you yield is no longer part of the Vietnamese character. Nobody yields anybody anymore. You see that in traffic. You see that at the bank. You see that everywhere. People just push themselves in. Maybe they're angry, but I think they're more in a rush. And we've adopted the worst of capitalism and to be very, very fast. We don't want anybody else in front of us. And it's years of conditioning that you have to fight for your circumstances and change your circumstances. Now, we don't think about anybody else. I see people parking on the streets everywhere, taking up space and not thinking about the person behind you, ever. But the other part, the part about accepting, is still there. So if you block the way and some guy rams its motorcycle into you, you turn around, you smile, and you say, it's okay. You accept it a bit. That is still part of Vietnam. But I'd like you to think about it and be angry with yourself the next time you park your motorcycle to send a text message, and I hope you do park your motorcycle when you text somebody. But to be angry at yourself for blocking traffic, for not thinking about the other, and go beyond the limits. Don't do what everybody else does in the society. One thing that I always admire about the Vietnamese is that we're very resourceful, that we always find a way to do something. Right? We won many wars because we are very resourceful. And so when your chair is broken, you find a rubber band to tie it around the legs, and you sit on it, and it's great. But what I fear is that in Vietnam, what is the temporary solution has become permanent. Nobody's angry enough to go and change it. If we can tie a rubber band around the leg of the chair, we'll do that forever. We will not go out and find a screw to screw in the legs correctly. And that happens in any fields, in school, in anything. The other thing with the Vietnamese is this. When I say, hey, the Chinese are attacking, the Cambodians attacking, the Vietnamese will rise up, work together, all unified, and go and defend ourselves and do the right thing. But then the next day, we stop doing anything. We're just not angry. We have to rely on the foreign enemy to get us together. Well, why can't we just get together ourselves? One of the other things that the people who work with me at the bar, they say, oh, I did it right yesterday. Well, that doesn't work. You have to do it right every day. Go beyond the limits. Don't just do it right yesterday and be satisfied with that. You know, it's very mundane, daily things that I'm talking to you about. But it changes my perspective, and it probably will change your perspective as well. So, in wrapping up, for me, to go beyond limits is to do more than I've done yesterday. And what do I do that for? We always have to have a reason why we do something. And I think there's nothing more important, more noble, than to go beyond limits, to grab the independence, to take for yourself your happiness. And if you take it for yourself, and you have your independence, and you have your freedom, your own freedom, and your own happiness, maybe you can change it so that when I go to the bank, and when I go to sign a contract, those 3 words are there, but they are words of truth, because you have gone through all these exercises to go through all the work that you do beyond limits to make that a true thing, not just 3 words on a piece of paper. Thank you very much.